G'day team, it's Chris speaking. Welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about my very first transgender influence in the media. Now, I came out at 26 and started transitioning just before my 28th birthday. In terms of medical transition, I had socially transitioned a little bit before then. And during that process, I went through gender therapy, actually went through a clinic, and we talked about a whole lot of stuff, including anywhere that I might have seen transgender influences and how I could have been influenced by them. Now, I had to think about this because I was over the age of 25 when I went through this gender clinic, which means that scientifically my brain had finished developing, which is why I had a lot of back and forth with myself and a lot of, questioning whether I really was transitioning or whatnot. I think these days people need to be really sure about transitioning and what doctors need to ask and whatnot because of the whole transmedicalism thing. That's not my shtick. That is for the doctors to fight, and I'll just tell you to do whatever you want. But I thought that I would go back and look at my own sort of influences and when I first saw a transgender person being represented in the media. Now, for me, it was the character Max Sweeny on The L Word. I'm bringing this up because I recently saw a person on my Instagram talking about their first influence, the first time that they saw a trans person represented in the media was Max Sweeny as well. Now, they sort of butchered the trans representation side of the L Word with Max's character. Max's character was played by Daniela C, who goes by a non-binary identity, I believe. I looked it up before I filmed the video because I wasn't sure about where they stood, and there was a quote saying that they don't sort of identify as either gender non-conforming and non-binary as in a sense. But they really didn't do transition and what transition is justice, but that having that experience that was shown in the L Word to pull from was still important to me, even though it wasn't done super well. I think that there are better versions of transition that is shown in the media that is a more positive influence and a more positive light, and something that people nowadays can really pull upon. And I know as I started questioning myself, I had different representations come across. Now, when I saw Max being portrayed in the L Word, I did not understand it at all. I didn't understand transition. All I knew was that this person who identified as a different gender and a different identity was now identifying as a male, and they were, the characters in the show were coming to terms with that. Now, Max's character in the L Word got testosterone illegally by someone, and his friends were helping him shoot up, and there was really bad roid rage or testosterone rage that came along with it, and it was just sort of grossly misrepresented. Although those things can happen when you take testosterone, it sort of went to one extreme to the other, and then his character had a hard time. It just had a really hard time and never sort of sought out a medical transition, so it's not the best influence for people to pull from. But that, when I was looking back on it, was like, oh, okay, well, this person identified as something else, and now they're a male, and they're being accepted as a male, and they were questioning their sexuality now as a gay man, and it was just, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the L Word, it finished 10 years ago, so I don't care. And that was the first person that I saw in the media being represented as a transgender person. Now, after that, I started picking up on other storylines with transgender people in it. Laverne Cox in Orange is the New Black, and that was done much better. There was a character, Maxine, in the Australian drama Wentworth that I picked up on, and then we got to people like Elliot Fletcher, who still influences a lot of people today. And I think the way that Elliot portrays transition in the shows that he has done so far has been quite a positive influence, and I'll make another video on that. So my first transgender influence ever was Daniela C as Max Sweeny in the L word. It wasn't the best representation, but it was my first influence and something that I definitely pulled from when I started questioning my gender, even though I didn't really understand it at the time. When I read this person's Instagram post, they basically said that even though the representation wasn't great, just having a narrative to pull from and just having someone on screen of a transgender identity was helpful for them. And I think it was the same for me because it is my earliest memory. No, it wasn't the best representation, but it was definitely something that I pulled from and helped me craft my own identity about what to do, what not to do, what it all meant. So I guess in some ways it still was a positive influence for myself. Who was your first influence? Let me know down below. That was a bit of a ramble. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of it, then click my face on the screen, and I'll catch you next time. Okay, bye.